Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
What do I see here? 1 minute late? 1 minute late! My gosh. Well, you know, it's good to be wanted. It's good to be wanted, good to be missed. It's been a whole week since we've been together here on the Rebel Force Radio Bad Batch After Show. And I know that some of you who are out there are thinking that this episode is all filler. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that this episode doesn't tie into the larger universe. And I think by the end of this after show, we're going to convince you otherwise. I mean, it's not immediately obvious, but once you start peeling back the layers, I mean, this was great character stuff here. And I think a big change in character, and we're going to get all to it. So thanks so much for joining us live. If you're listening to us as we stream this out on YouTube, if you're listening on delayed podcast, please consider joining us live. We're here on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And I think we've got a good episode to talk about this week. And we'll be breaking it all down. We're going to take your phone calls. We're going to be looking at the chat. So whether it's comments about this week's episode or maybe something that happened earlier in the season, we want to hear from you. So be sure to ring us up and share your thoughts, your opinions, your prognostications. All of it here is fair game. We love to hear your thoughts and what you think is going to be happening as this season unfolds. We're on the back nine. I mean, it's really technically the back eight, but we're on the back nine. So this is the second half of the season, and I have heard that the creatives have said that there's a consequences with every episode. This is all leading into a big crescendo. So the days where we're going to get an episode that doesn't necessarily matter the next week, I think those days are over, at least for this season. So we'll see if this holds true as we discuss it all. And here to help me with that and so much more is, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Hey, RFR Nation. Nah, I don't like that.
Is that a thing?
No. I'm workshopping it. It didn't work for me. No.
Okay.
So sticking with Star Wars fans. Hey, Star Wars fans. That's where we'll edit. Forget I ever said RFR Nation. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that could be taken the wrong way. RFR Nation. I don't know. You never know how sensitive people are these days. Oh, my God. Look at these guys. Their egos.
I may have crossed the boundary to the point of no return. Well, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So, hey, RFR Nation.
Can you put the cloned embryo back in the tube?
I don't know. We'll have to ask Daniel Logan. He would know. He would know. I think Danny was taken out and then put back in a few times, quite honestly. Oh, this one's not done yet. Nope, they put him back in there. Poor little Boba.
Yeah.
Little Boba. Yeah,
Poor
character
Boba
was steeped in mystery, and now we know everything there is to know about the guy, Boba. Hey,
well,
Boba.
I mean, almost everything. This episode got me thinking in particular about when I want to know if Boba and Omega knew each other at all, if they were aware of each other at all, because this has a lot to do with this whole episode, you know, how Omega deals with loss. And so I started thinking about her history and, well, where has she experienced loss, or is her struggles with loss the fact that she hasn't experienced a lot of loss? And so the question popped in my mind: did she lose her only friend, playmate, the only one that she knew that was of her age? She never brings him up. She doesn't talk about him. So, my theory is no, that they didn't know each other.
Well, like Omega, Boba is an unaltered clone as far as the time acceleration thing. But there were plenty of other young clones walking around Kamino. Remember, we saw that shot of all those little Daniel Logans sitting in a classroom and they had headsets on, and there were hundreds of them. Imagine if Omega walked into that room; those guys would go nuts. They would go, it'd be the first woman they've ever seen.
Oh my God, it'd be like Smurfette showing up at the Smurf Village. I mean,
she would be Smurfette. Exactly.
But you get the sense in that first season, like, she doesn't have any friends. She's been isolated and
yes.
And I guess, the more I'm talking about this, sort of the big mystery around Omega was the fact that she seems to have been somewhat of a secret. They made efforts to keep her kind of under wraps and under lock and key. I think she didn't have full realm of Topoka City, I don't think.
I don't think so. Well, she sure seemed to know a lot about the inner workings of the city, how to get around in that place. I mean, I think she knew a lot. Yeah, that's really hard to define what sort of independence she had prior to her becoming wrapped up with the Bad Batch and getting removed from Camino. That stuff is all sort of fuzzy, isn't it?
It is a little bit.
So I like to think she was very sheltered, where maybe she was extremely restricted in her ability to roam around and see other clones, interact with other clones. It seemed like she was more comfortable interacting with the Kaminoans.
Exactly. And I think that was by design. And we've got some folks in the chat saying that she was kept away from the other clones. Although, she does... that's how she meets the Bad Batch. She ends up, I think, in that commissary at one point. Is how she meets
right. Him. Yeah, so she was out and about in public areas. So she was interacting with the mass population of the cloning facility at the very least. So it's hard to say whether she or Boba ever crossed paths. She certainly has not made any reference to him specifically.
No.
And it's almost like any of the regs, they don't do anything for Omega. She was really only interested in the Bad Batch.
Right.
So maybe there's something in her DNA that, makes her seek out her own sort of tribe, if you will, or family is what comes up in this episode a lot. Family.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, I have to remind myself all the time that just because she and Boba Fett are unaltered clones doesn't necessarily mean that they were created at the same time.
Yes, I think she was. Did they say she was maybe even? No, she was created ahead of the Bad Batch. Actually.
Yes, yeah, ahead of the Batch.
But Boba would have been probably one of the first ones because he was payment for Tem Morrison for Jango Fett. Jango wanted.
Actually, he was payment for Tem Morrison. They didn't pay him any cash for the film. They just gave him Daniel Logan.
Well, here you go. And yes, and so he's actually been living at Tamora Morrison's house, and occasionally they've been spotted together at the Polynesian Spa. New Zealand. But this is not true, any of it. So
no. Don't take any of this.
I don't want to see headlines or anything like that. But
I'll tell you what is true. What is true is the tale of the tape this week. We are talking about season 2, episode 9, The Crossing. Directed by Nathaniel Villanueva, written by Brooke Roberts, and that amazing score by Kevin Kiner, as always. And the original air date for this episode, February 15th, 2023, in case you are listening to this in the future. When I mentioned Kevin Kiner, I was thinking about the score, and he was giving me Mando vibes a little bit. There's that sort of Western feel that was peppered throughout this score. And so I started thinking about, Spurs and Jango Fett, or not Jango Fett, I'm sorry, Cat Bane, and obviously Star Wars has such a great history coming out of the inspiration the westerns and all of that. And it really didn't happen. Then when they started walking towards the town at the end, I'm like, oh, this is where it's going to get kind of western. There'll be a saloon or something, and we didn't have that either. So, maybe it was just a reference to the terrain. The terrain was very
clearly
western style, but abandoned.
Oh,
we know it was abandoned.
Yeah. I mean, it was right out of John Ford's The Searchers, I mean, it was barren planet with canyons and rock outcroppings, and it had that acoustic western guitar music that was inspired by just like not only spaghetti westerns but the classics. It looks like it was shot in Utah, the whole episode, and so that music definitely added to the whole atmosphere. But we didn't stumble into any western tropes that you would commonly see in western films. There were no, there were no bandits, there were no sheriffs, there were no we had a stampede of space deer at best, and there was the old abandoned ghost town. Okay, there was the ghost town.
Well, there was the mine,
and the mine.
Okay, gold here.
But that's all environment. It's
right.
all
right. You're right.
Strictly environment. And so, they're basically just thrown onto the set of a western film without any other actors.
Right. Now there was this character right here. We don't know who this is. This is the mysterious thief.
Yeah.
And so this is I guess if we're going to carry the western analogy here, this would be like when you tie your horse up and you got a horse thief and they steal your horse. Well, in this case, they steal the Havoc Marauder. And I got to ask, and I think a lot of people are wondering this, like, do these spaceships not have a key or a code?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Or something?
Anyone
can just walk into a ship and steal it?
All the time. Obi-Wan Kenobi stole a ship in that series. Anakin Skywalker stole that speeder on Coruscant in Attack of the Clones. People just hop behind Rey in The Force Awakens, thinking the Falcon isn't even capable of flying, yet it's fully fueled up and ready to go with the battery charged and everything. So, I bypassed the compressor. I don't know what that means. Okay. I don't know what that means.
No wonder Han and Chewie lost the Falcon.
We need some ignition keys in this.
They're so easy to steal, apparently.
Geez, we're as advanced as you chuckleheads are, Maybe even just like a code pad or something. I mean, something.
Right. Please tell me that once they get this ship back, if they get it back, unless it goes the way of the Razor Crest, next time we see them get out of it, I want to see them take the little key fob and go bloop, bloop. Right? That's what I want to see. I want them to take precautions. And they've got...
Or they accidentally hit that red panic button and you just hear... I
forgot where we parked it. Yeah. You're supposed to not do that, by the way. Apparently it makes you a target for being mugged and carjacked. I do it all the time because I can never remember where I park. So there's a tip.
So their ship gets ripped off by that little guy. What if that was Boba Fett, Kid Boba Fett, hanging out there on this weird planet?
You know who I thought it kind of looked like?
Who
does it look like when you think the hair, street rat, scoundrel?
Oh, that's Ezra Bridger.
It's Ezra Bridger. Come on. This is
Ezra never left Lothal until he hooked up with the crew.
I guess.
All right. But who is this little scamp? And why is this the only person living on this whole planet to begin with? And what were they doing there? When they got there, is like great visuals. Okay, cool. This looks like Utah. Okay. But what are they doing there? And so right away, Tech informs us, according to Sid's coordinates, this is the mine she purchased. I'm like, oh, Sid again, another mission for Sid. I'm going to say right now, I am sick of Sid. I've had enough of Sid. I am so sick of having the characters of the show being subordinate to her week after week after, because there are bigger fish to fry, you know?
No, there are.
Why are we still
that's why,
having to
Jim,
negotiate with Sid?
I think that's why Echo left. He's like, enough of this. Taking orders from this this green potato? I mean, come on.
Great. Another standalone mission for Sid. So I am just sick. I am sick to tears of Sid. And I was feeling that way before the season even started.
But I think it's going
we're in a
somewhere,
vortex here of Sid missions. Just this vortex. It's sucking us down.
I have hopes that this is probably the last mission. I do think this is the last Sid mission because she's laying some cards on the table, I think, with her reluctance to come to their aid. And then when she does acquiesce, it's like, yeah, it's going to take me a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever she says. And I'm wondering, I don't know. Either they're going to get sick of it or this is some plot that she has to get rid of them. Have they become some sort of liability that she needs to dump?
How much are they going to be worth to her without a ship anyway? You know, now she has to go bail them out. But I mean, one hand washes the other, and Tech has shown signs in the past of starting to run out of patience with Sid. And he was real quick to remind her of all the reasons that she owed them.
Oh, yeah.
For, they've saved her skin a few times. But I mean, that hologram call to Sid was the most wasted hologram call since the gang reached out to Maz Kanata in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she was involved in some labor dispute with a jetpack and
I'm
blasters.
sorry, I can't help you.
It's like, what? I thought this old kumquat ran a bar. I didn't know she's out now involved in some labor negotiations with blaster pistols and jetpacks. What the hell is going on here? Take
Where did that happen?
Kumquat.
All of a sudden she's Rocket Raccoon flipping around like taking people out.
What the hell? What the holy hell?
Right. That was a weird turn around. You know what? Now that we're years away, I'll tell you, we had a little inside information. I don't know if it's true, but we had a little inside information that said that part of the reason that Lupita's character was so written down for the second film was that she and Daisy Ridley couldn't stand each other. I don't know if that's true, but that is some inside dope that we had heard. So if you're wondering why there wasn't more to that.
Okay.
I don't mean to be spreading rumors. I'm just,
again, headlines tomorrow.
But yeah, Jim, the Sid
information.
I think the reason, and this is I'm holding hope, is that, I mean, this is a big letdown, right? I mean, first of all, when she's first asked to help, she's like, no. And as you point out, Tech runs through the list of times they've bailed her out. Then she looks down at, that little cherub's face of Omega. And she's like,
yeah,
all right, it's going to take me a few days to figure this out. Why would it take her a few days? Because I think she's got to plot her next move. That's what I think it is. So this very well could be the beginnings of some sort of plot of hers, or it's just going to be the last straw for them as far as whether they're going to trust her moving forward. And that's been foreshadowed, right? Her loyalty to them. They've been warned
several times.
Yeah, it was.
But here's the thing. I mean,
warned them.
She says that she indicates she has her hands full with something at the moment, and she can't go to get them. And they're like, no, we can't take no for an answer. You have to come out. So what is she dealing with? Is that just a smokescreen because she doesn't want to go? Or is there something, some really pressing matter at hand that she has to deal with? And if she, for her to remove herself from that situation, is there going to be fallout that the Bad Batch have to deal with? So, I mean, I look at this like everything these characters say there should be some purpose and reason behind it, and that's at least how I approach it. And a lot of times I'm disappointed when there isn't a payoff in that department, but, that's how I'm approaching it. So, and that's what I'm listening to Sid, and I'm hearing her say that she has trouble leaving at that moment. Is she just making excuses, or is there something really at hand that could have repercussions?
Yeah. So this Ipsium mine that belongs to Sid, it looks to be pretty much dry of the Ipsium. So if Sid's out there listening, I do have some swampland in southern Florida. If you're interested, you can take it off my hands for a song. I don't think it was not a great investment. But the mine that they stumble into after the Lion King stampede.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you catch the line?
I never saw Lion King. This has come up recently.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. You didn't see Lion King, but there's a really, very emotional scene where there's a stampede and Mufasa. Well, I shouldn't spoil this, but bad things happen. Man? How long's the movie been out? Like but anyway, I mean. When I look at this shot, I mean, this was definitely an homage to that, because that was a big deal. That was a big achievement in animation when they were able to pull off that stampede. And so I think this is a little tip of the hat to that. And then the fact that in this moment when Wrecker, literally throws himself on the container with the Ipsium to protect it from, I mean, he's not protecting it. He's really protecting all of them, because if the stampede, this is apparently a very volatile element.
Yeah, well, of course, it's Ipsium, Swank. Didn't you learn about that in chemistry in high school?
That was not on my periodic table in high school, but maybe they've added it.
I looked it up just to see if there was some sort of basis in reality for Ipsium, or if it had appeared in Star Wars before, because I mean, when they described it, highly combustible and explosive in its raw, pre-refined state, I'm like, where do we hear this before? Oh, yeah, Solo in the coaxium. Same
coaxium,
shtick.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. And so, I mean, the show has to resort to going to Solo and rip, for inspiration. I mean, So again, I just don't like the repetition. If they're going to be seeking out something highly combustible in this, describing coaxium, but they give it a different name, they just say it's coaxium.
Why not just? Yeah, really, I wondered that too. Why not just make it coaxium?
Why not?
Right, and then that.
Why the hell not?
And I know people say,
"Well,
it makes the universe really small." Well, but what's the point of reinventing the same thing and just giving it, a different name? It's
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So to me, it's coaxium. In my head canon. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. These are just observations, So
of course, we want to get to your observations too. So make sure that you get ready to call in. And we are, of course, we're watching the chat. We've got a good group. I see everybody. The usual cast of characters are here, plus some new names. It's always great to have you. Here's a question I wanted to ask, and this is related but unrelated. We every week, even if the plot line isn't something that we're extremely into, we all marvel at the quality of the animation of the show. It's phenomenal. I mean, the scene when they are in the water, the lighting, it was just absolutely gorgeous. This show is hands down one of the most beautiful animated series, maybe ever. Certainly, as far as what's airing on television now. But Disney's got a new CEO, Bob Iger, and Bob Iger announced 7,000 jobs cut across the company and $5.5 billion in costs to be cut. Now, Jim, when Disney initially took over Lucasfilm, we went from Clone Wars to the show that shall not be named. We went from this beautiful 3D animation to the 2D animation of
Resistance.
Resistance, yeah. It's
yes,
actually,
I've already forgotten.
I already forgotten. But anyway, so the question is this something that they can continue with? Because we know where the hemorrhaging of the money is coming from. It's coming from the development of the content. They're spending lots of money on the content that's going on Disney Plus, and they're not seeing the return in terms of the subscribers and all of that. So when something like Bad Batch, which I love and it's gorgeous, but it's not coming cheap, I don't think.
Mhm.
Just wonder if
Yeah.
it's, what that means for the future of
You
things
know,
like Bad Batch.
Disney, they just need to get other films into theaters outside of the Marvel content. They don't ever put anything out anymore. It's
Yeah, they
always
gotta-
Marvel or nothing,
They got a big
Where-
flop
where-
on
where
their
the
hands with
films-
Ant-Man right now. That's a problem.
right?
Yep.
What?
The new
What did you
Ant-Man
just say?
movie is a big flop. I mean, like your
It's a
your
flop.
point.
How could you even say it's a flop? It hasn't even opened yet.
Yeah, it opened.
Like tonight or tomorrow.
No.
Tomorrow. It has not been seen by anyone yet.
No, I thought it
Ant-Man.
opened last weekend.
No.
Then why am I
Swank
seeing
checking
headlines
out
about
box-
it flopping?
Seeing box office numbers are non-existent for a film that hasn't opened yet. So naturally, he's
I'm
going
not
to assume
saying
it's a flop.
the internet is saying it. I'm
Well, I don't know
quoting the
who they-
internet.
I don't
Fart
know
Party
how
says he's
anybody
seeing
can
it
say it's a
tomorrow.
Flop. Yeah, that's what's happening. People are seeing it starting tomorrow. So I don't know how they can predict a flop.
Wait
for
a minute.
film that hasn't
Dr.
opened yet.
Disrespect Highlight says the new Ant-Man movie is awful. People are seeing this thing.
Well, maybe they went to the premiere or they saw a press review or something. I don't know. I mean, crap, Disney sent out the whole season of The Bad Batch to the media who act as PR mouthpieces for them. And so they sent the whole season out. Well, that's just absurd,
That
I don't
is
know how
absurd.
they distribute these previews anymore. And I don't even want to know. When I see this stuff, I'm seeing it with the people, man. I'm seeing it with everyone in the chat. I'm seeing it,
The people. Yeah.
I'm
I don't
standing
mean
in
to
line
take us
for
down
it.
that
I'm buying a ticket
the
for it.
Marvel rabbit hole, but I do think that it's significant because I do believe that this is, as far as animation goes, this is not a cheap show. If it was, everybody would be doing this style. And when you got $5.5 billion in costs that are going to be cut, 7,000 jobs, it just gives me pause. I would hate to lose this style of animation on a weekly basis.
Yeah. Like I said, if they just open the floodgates and start actually putting films back out into the theaters, they own 20th Century Fox, they own Lucasfilm, they own Pixar, but the only thing that ever gets released is Marvel films. So I can't figure it out. But I'm sure somebody will send me a link. Well, here's the Disney's release schedule for the next year. I don't care. I'm not even going to look at it. Don't waste your time. I just tell you,
you know what? But you're not wrong, because Iger said that they're going to focus on their franchises. They're going to focus on Star Wars, Marvel, Indiana Jones. That's where they believe that the money is to be made. Avatar, all that stuff. So I don't think that they have any intentions of walking away from that stuff. I don't know that that's necessarily the answer. Just make it good. It's not obvious to me that the streaming model, because content now is just so fractured. In a way, it's like we're kind of just getting what we all wished, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, that we could just subscribe to the things that we wanted. And now the content is so fractured, you have to subscribe to everything. So I'd argue that you're spending more. There are some people I know that are real good about dipping in and out. All right, I'm into this show, so I'm gonna sign up for a month and then I'm gonna drop it. That's fine if I just don't have that kind of time to be logging on and canceling accounts and restarting accounts and all of that. But anyway,
we subscribe to everything in my house.
We are too. We got everything. We got everything
under the sun.
But let's talk about the Omega a little bit here, because what I see with her is a big change, and I've got one of these in my house. I've got a soon to be she is a teenager now, teenage daughter, and it's amazing. They grow up fast. They change even faster. But what we're used to with Omega is, we've seen her get sad. We've seen her, be very melancholy. We've seen her ask tough questions of the grown-ups in her life. Something I've not seen her do until this episode is get mad at the guys. She gets mad and says, I want to be left alone, where we know that's actually the last thing she wants. She's terrified of being alone. Again, she was alone for such a long time. But I've not seen her storm off and then reject the comfort that the guys are trying to offer her. This was new for me, at least what I expect of Omega, and I think that it's great because I want to see this character evolve and grow up, and you know, she's not a little kid anymore. But the one thing they have to learn, she's also not a soldier. You know, she's not a soldier, and that's not a criticism. She's a kid.
She's not a soldier, but I mean, she was bred in a facility where every other clone was created to be a soldier. So I think there are some natural abilities she has just based on where she comes from. But emotionally, though, she's very frustrated with the guys. They don't understand. She sees their family falling apart. She doesn't understand how they could deal with Echo just walking away the way he does. And I'm glad they dealt with this in this episode, as opposed to just saying, well, I hope Echo is doing okay on his new missions with Captain Rex. Yeah. Just to let us remind us that he's there. But I mean, there's real emotional fallout, which is good because it was just so abrupt the way he left at the end of the last episode that the characters didn't even really have time to deal with it. We didn't get to see him actually even telling the characters he was leaving. That happened off screen. So by the time the Bad Batch were saying goodbye to him, they had already come to terms with his departure. But it was dropped on Omega as a surprise. They kept her in the dark on that one, which really surprises me that she was just kept in the dark. It might be, an indication that maybe Echo really didn't feel that close to Omega. I mean, I guess they had moments together. I can't recall them.
Well, he teaches her, if you remember, he teaches her how to use that bow.
Yeah, okay.
Echo does. The fact that, because I was thinking about this too, like why is she taking this one so hard? And
right.
I think I have an answer. This is the first big loss that she's experienced. I know people on the chat are saying she lost her whole planet, she lost her city. It's not the same. It's not the same as when you lose somebody who is a parental or guardian figure. And keep in mind too that the Bad Batch just not that long ago lost another brother. They lost Crosshair. So, in some ways, I think that not that they're used to the loss, but I mean, I think that, they're used to having to pick up the pieces, move on, adapt, the next mission. They don't have time they don't have time for sentimentality and that sort of thing. And that, again, you brought up a great point. We were talking about, is she a soldier? Yeah, genetically, is she capable of being a soldier? Heck yeah. But is she emotionally, psychologically a soldier? I say no. I say she's a kid, and she's a kid that has issues. And what are those issues? Well, those issues are that she's afraid of being alone. She's never really known what a home is. And so when she gets something resembling a home like the Havoc Marauder and a family like the Bad Batch, any threat to that is, something that she is going to fear probably more than anything else. The other thing I thought too, is it possible, it was a couple episodes ago, there was that conversation that she overheard between Hunter and Crosshair, Hunter and Echo, and he was talking about, we need to do more, and to help the clones, and Hunter brings up, well, we have Omega, and he's like, yeah, Omega is the reason that we're in this fight, and she kind of misunderstands it. he does talk it over with her, but could she be blaming herself for the fact that Echo left? That he wasn't satisfied, being a babysitter essentially, or another dad. So,
well, yeah, she could look at it. He just rejects the thing she considers to be most important, and it's their bond.
Yeah,
is a family unit. They hit that. So, and also losing her home. She can't accept the fact that Havoc Marauder's been taken away.
Oh, yeah.
They're just like, whatever. Yeah, we'll get another ship.
She can't figure that out. That there's
Yeah.
that there's no sentiment, towards it. But keep in mind too, like they made her a room. They tried to give her like her little, a bedroom. So it was more of a home for her. It represented a home for her, largely, I think, because of the way that they modified it for her. They modified, probably the way that they act in the ship and all of that. I mean, and again, she's a kid.
Yeah, right. So she doesn't even understand the variables involved. Everything's very absolute. Everything's very set in stone. Her home is her home, and that's all there is to it. So it was nice to see this show deal with those emotional connections that the characters had between each other. Especially, I felt it especially when Omega was she was hanging on the side there trying to extract the Ipsium. And boy, that sure was satisfying. Watch her suck the juice out of that those rocks. That was,
Right.
There's something very satisfying about that entire animated process there. But she reached out and then she just fell into the darkness, and Tech looked and he hesitated for a second, then just dove right in. Not even knowing where he's going,
right in. Not even knowing. Not even knowing what was down there. He had no clue.
So
and it was a very.
That shows,
yeah, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
That just shows that he does feel the family connection. I mean, because would he have done that for another soldier if he was fighting alongside a Reg? And the Reg just fell down in the thing. Would he dive after that guy? Would he dive after Wrecker? I don't know. Maybe he would.
Yeah, maybe Wrecker. But no, you're 100% right that what that shows is and I think it's purposeful that they used Tech. They could have used Hunter. They could have maybe used Wrecker, I guess, but he's, his intellect isn't there. But they used Tech because he is the furthest away from Omega in terms of emotional restraint, control, and that sort of thing. So if Tech jumps in after Omega, if she sees that, if Tech is the one that admits that he also feels the loss of Echo, then Omega knows, and we know as the audience that all the other guys do too. It's like because Tech is so far on the emotionless side, he's like the Mr. Spock of the group.
For
and
sure,
that's a classic conflict. You got in Star Trek, you got Bones, who is the over emotional one, always very feeling, putting people first, and Spock is the opposite, and that's they are at odds. But I do love when Crosshair, excuse me, God, I keep saying Crosshair. when Tech, says, I may process things differently, I may react to things differently, but it doesn't mean I feel any less than you do. It's an important lesson for her.
How many conversations have I thrown down that little nugget of wisdom on people?
Yeah. I'm sure.
Cold-hearted? Me? Cold? No. I'm crying on the inside. But these are just great moments. And I notice Tech is really getting the lion's share of the spotlight this season out of all those soldiers.
He sure is.
He seems to be focused on the most by the writers and everything. which only leads me to the conclusion that he will be dead by the end of this season because they're spending so much time with him right now.
What?
It's just like,
wait,
yes,
hold on.
it's just
Slow down. Wait a minute. You just blew right past that. Are you making a prediction?
I'm going to tell you what leads me to that conclusion.
Okay.
It's just like the way they edit those seasons of Survivor, okay? The people who get voted off the island first, they get the lion's share of the spotlight for those episodes. And the guys who end up being big players later on in the season, they're in the shadows often in those early episodes. They don't make their mark until later in the season.
Oh, man.
And that's all because of the editing, because the entire season is shot before it's presented on the network. So it gets edited in a way where it unfolds like a story. And so certain characters get the spotlight placed on them early because they get voted off the island early. So that's the only time we get to know them. I'm getting Survivor vibes. This is the Survivor theory being translated to Star Wars character somehow in my head. But I'm just like, wow, Tech is getting a lot of airtime, isn't he? He's getting a lot of FaceTime on camera. This is a dead man walking.
I always thought that Tech and Echo were a little interchangeable.
Yes.
You know,
that's why I'm glad
Tech
Echo
was
was
the
gone.
brains, but Echo was sort of teched out, you know, with the Borg.
Right.
Another thought I had about Omega and why she's reacting so strongly to this is if she doesn't see the guys outwardly grieving or mourning or being, you know, torn up by Echo leaving, does that make her feel disposable? Does that make her feel that if she left, they wouldn't feel any differently or that they would just move on? And that's a hard thing for kids to understand. You know, that someday their parents won't be around. No parent wants to outlive their child, you know. So someday, you know, it's the circle of life. It's the way it's supposed to be. And so this is a lesson that she's learning, that people enter your life, they leave your life. But it doesn't mean that you're not still a family, that you don't have those aspects of those people, you know, still in your life, even though when they're no longer here. So, which is interesting because this is Star Wars we're talking about, and Star Wars is not just about family, but it's also about spirituality. It's about the Force. It's about, you know, retaining yourself, or retaining the certainly the spiritual impression of your loved ones through the Force and that sort of thing. But here we got you know, Omega that's really kind of having this crisis in some ways of understanding loss and perhaps mortality and all these deeper things. So I told you this wasn't filler, folks.
Well, you know, the character moments are strong.
They're great. Yeah.
It's unfortunate how the episode just sort of fizzled out at the end, you know?
Yeah, but it's going to be a two-parter.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. But so I'm left saying, well, is this a cliffhanger? What are the stakes here? What's going on here? What are the threats? They seem very concerned about these storms, these irregular storms. They're shifting, they're irregular, and they look like, you know, hell is about ready to unleash its fury on the planet. But we really don't know anything about the storms. We certainly don't know of any other threats the planet presents other than, you know, a bunch of space deer on a, you know, on a stampede, you know,
well, stampeding
space deer. You know, it's like, wow, you go from the Sarlacc pit to stampeding space deer. It's like, I need something more cutting edge. Give me something that's a little bit more of a threat. But the way the episode ended, they have the call with Sid. She hung up on them without saying goodbye.
That's rude.
And she just kind of cut the call off. Again, you know, reinforcing my desire to see something very bad happen to Sid at some point. But they're low on rations. Okay.
Yeah.
They're stranded.
And that town
No idea
is
where their ship
deserted
is.
and seems to be deserted for a long time.
The only
So-
resource in there was that antenna tower array.
Right.
Um,
I thought they were going to end it like. Remember, they talk a couple times in the episode about how their comms are not long range enough to reach Echo, and so they find this tower, and here I'm like, oh, this is it. They're going to reach out to Echo. They reach out to Sid.
No.
They
well,
reach
it's
out to
because
Sid.
they do reveal earlier in the episode that Echo is operating under radio silence, and they assume it's
turned it
because he's
off.
on. Yeah, so
Yes,
they assume he's
you're
on some sensitive mission with Rex somewhere. I'd rather see that than this, but whatever.
Hey, can you just move the camera over to where Echo and Rex are? It's got to be more interesting.
Mhm. But I mean, just as a standalone mission of the week, it was good to deal with the fallout of Echo leaving the team, specifically seeing how it affects Omega, because we're seeing this whole series from her perspective primarily. And I'm a fan of all the characters, so I feel what they feel and want the best for them. But I'm gonna use this term, meat on the bone. We need some meat on the bone. And this episode didn't have much meat on the bone at all. It was like a little, like thigh, a little fried thigh, a chicken.
Okay,
like
all
with
right.
The stringy meat.
I'm going to keep your metaphor because, yes, there's not as much meat on the thighs, but they're the tastiest, I think. And there were some tasty parts to this in terms of character. But Jim, I'm with you. Like I was hoping for a little bit more. If they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger, raise the stakes a little bit.
Give us something to worry about.
It's like
the next week.
the stakes are what, you're going to be bored for a couple days, like because there's nothing to do.
They're going to run low on rations. They're going to find some sort of environmental threat, and the storms.
Right.
Obviously, the storms were mentioned about 4 times in this episode, and the characters are very concerned with those storms. So, I expect to see the storms wreak some havoc.
I think the next episode is called like Retrieval or something like that. So this is The Crossing.
Gotta get the ship
Which, by the
back,
way, what the
retrieve.
hell did they cross? There's no bridge in this thing. There really was no crossing. I mean, I guess they crossed the terrain of the planet, I suppose.
Not really. I mean, maybe a little bit.
There you go. They crossed the Badlands. I don't know. So I thought it was an oddly named episode, but the next one is, I think it's Retrieval or something like that. So they're gonna get the Marauder back, right? Do we all think they're gonna get the Marauder back? I feel
Of course they
are.
will.
Yeah, and then they'll get
That's
to the
what they'll be
bottom of who it
retrieving.
was. And what?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a twist. What if they find out that this whatever this thing is, this person, what if they're working for Sid? What if it's the ultimate betrayal?
I like that line of thinking. And that's something I didn't consider. Not at all. Not at all. Maybe Sid is looking to get rid of the Bad Batch.
She wants that
And
ship.
this is how she wants to do it.
There's got to be. Is there? I'm trying to think. Is there a bounty on their heads? No, because the galaxy at large thinks that they perished, that they're gone,
Right.
that they were killed on
yeah.
Camino.
That is mentioned in the last episode.
Only Rampart knows the truth now.
Rampart and we'll Crosshair. But I thought they were exposing themselves when they were fighting stormtroopers on Kashyyyk. I thought they were exposing themselves, but apparently they made it through that battle unidentified, because in the last episode, Truth and Consequences, they do make a point of saying the Empire thinks we're dead. So I guess that's, they're not hunting for them. They're not wanted men. There's no bounty on their heads because they're presumed dead. Crosshair knows.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how Rampart knows. Again, as I said last
Rampart
week,
knows
I don't know
because-
what Rampart knows.
No, there was that clone that told him, and then he chucked the clone over the cliff. Didn't he? Didn't he kill that guy? Was that what was that character?
Right.
Hold on, I got him all written
In the
down
second
here.
episode.
Wilco. Wasn't it Wilco?
Wilco, right.
Yeah.
Right. Wilco.
Roger
Tweedy.
Wilco and out. All right, we got the number where I'm going to put that on the screen right here for you to give us a call. 708-866-1737. I do see a number of you watching. Got quite a few watching, but it's always like, the likes are always like half of the people watching. So come on, hit that like button. Help us out. We want to get those algorithms working.
We're so desperate to be liked.
It is sad. It does make you like, like me. We're begging. This is what we've become, begging for likes.
I always think of Sally Field at the Oscars when she's like, "You like me. You really like me." It's like, give me a break.
Poor Sally. You know what? She's probably almost, if not more so famous for that than she is. And she's a fantastic actress. My goodness. Been in so many great things. But yeah, that line, that's going to be on her tombstone, You just never
of course
know
it is.
the things that are going to make up. I thought I had another point, but I don't. So it's time to do some super chats. Let's see what's going on with you guys in the super chats. Here's our boy Suds. Once again, Swank's hair is on point. Thanks, Suds. I'm not thrilled with it. To be honest, I got a haircut coming on Saturday, so I'll be much happier when that.
Oh
happens.
yeah, you're really letting your freak flag fly right now. You need to do something about it. You got to groom that thing, Sarge.
I do. John David says, I enjoyed this episode. Tech, like the racing episode, gets more time to shine. Also, I think we are going to find out why Sid had her hands full. So, yeah, hopefully we'll find out why she was so distracted. We were drawing comparisons earlier to Maz Kanata being unable to jump in the fray. Episode 8.
What happened to Fee? Where's Wanda Sykes been? Was that
Where's
just
she
a
at?
cameo for her? She's not going to have her character is going to have no substance or consequence in the season at all. She just shows up and then leaves.
Yeah, now you could really, use her. Like, can they call her now? They've got that big tower. Do they only get one phone call on this planet?
Yeah, right. Call Fee.
Here's David. David says, I love seeing Tech jump into the dark without a thought after Omega fell. Also, could this be when Sid sells out the Bad Batch location to the Empire? Whoa. Strand them and then sell them out. Smart. I mean, she would know. She has history. She knows. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, she's the only one that knew they were going to be there. Now, this thief that steals the ship, the only thing that throws me off is because at first I was like, no, it had to be an inside job because no one would have known that they're there. But they do mention poachers. They mention poachers are there, so this could be a poacher, I suppose.
Right. It's just some random thief.
Yeah.
Nobody in particular.
Yeah, so that could be a poacher. Once again, that number is 708-866-1737. Give Tyler something to do. Oh, he's screening right now. That's great. Okay. Sal B. Crum says, is this the start of the Sid relationship disillusion? And am I the only one who could barely see half the episode? Hashtag new meaning to the dark times. Yeah, it's like Solo. I had to I had to bring up the contrast. I actually watched it on my iPad this week, and I'm glad I did because I did bring the brightness up, not the contrast, the brightness up. I thought it was beautiful though. I love that they used the lighting is just phenomenal. So I didn't mind. I didn't feel like I was really missing all that much. Seen one cave, you've seen them all. in this case. But I thought they did some really beautiful things with the lighting and Jim was talking about the ipsium and how it was being sucked out of the rock and all that. And I thought the dark atmosphere added to it.
Yeah. And little things too, like the sight of light reflecting off the surface of the water and then bouncing off the rocks in the cave. It's little things like that. It really adds a lot of depth and deepness to the animation. Makes it so much more than just animation.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's Fred. Fred says this episode, and by the way, thank you all so much for the super chats. It means a lot. It helps us out more than you know. So we really, really appreciate it. This episode was partly about Tech maybe being on the autism spectrum. Even if he isn't, I can see fans who struggle with autism really relating to him and his trouble relating to people's emotions. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It very well could be an effort to, make that character relatable to some. I know that I'm fortunate. I don't deal with that personally in my family. I'm in close proximity to families who do have that going on. And yeah, it's difficult because not seeing that emotion is very challenging. So yeah, if this is a way of creating some bridges to that would be great. That would be great. Good thought there, Fred.
I caught some people online talking about how the struggles that Omega is going through right now could also be something that kids who have seen their parents go through a divorce, maybe they can find some relatability in some of the struggles Omega is having as well.
Wow, that's deep. Hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just saw some chat online about it.
Yeah.
I didn't see much chat online about this episode, but that one did catch my attention. And I appreciated that.
Losing your home. Not having, somebody there that you're used to having in the home all the time. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Did you notice too that the guys seem to be at each other's throats a little bit more? Are we to assume that maybe Echo was a bit of maybe a peacekeeper, a good mediator amongst the guys?
Ooh, yeah. There obviously the chemistry between them would have to go through some sort of shift by removing Echo from the equation.
Yeah.
And that's quite possible that he had a way of rationalizing some of the things they go through and then being able to articulate that to the rest of the crew might have helped keep them from going over the edge. I don't personally know of any examples of him doing that right off the top of my head. Because Echo, a lot of times to me, did sort of meld into the background a little bit, or he felt like he was interchangeable with Tech. We're beginning to learn more about Tech, though, which is really great, which might make him stand out more as an individual. But I know that Tech was really frustrated with Wrecker in this episode, and I was too. I mean, if he's supposed to watch the ship, why was he hanging out there anyway? If he was supposed to be watching the ship, why didn't he just go back to the ship and sit in there and wait for them to call him and say, hey, we need help moving this stuff?
Right.
I just, and you parked around a corner. I mean, what kind of, some of the decisions made in the writer's room for this episode really had me scratching my head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it felt a little dumbed down too much for me.
A little lazy.
I mean,
a little lazy,
too
convenient.
A little laziness in the writing room.
Yeah.
This show really shines when Clone Wars veterans are the ones working on it.
Yeah, we've got some
the writer
new
for this
names.
particular episode.
Brooke Roberts
did not have. Who was that?
Writer
Brooke
of this
Roberts.
episode, Brooke Roberts, a name I'm not familiar with.
Very limited experience. Very limited experience. She wrote an episode of Boston Legal, an episode of The Flash. She was a story editor on Flash. Oh, so I mean, maybe not that limited. I mean, shit. Oh, sorry. I just dropped the S-bomb. Now, she did work for 3 seasons as a story editor on Flash and wrote some scripts for that. So I shouldn't be talking about things I don't know because she does have experience. So I just felt like maybe some of the decisions made were maybe they were for economic reasons. I don't know, but it just
Here's John David. He says it's not coaxium because coaxium has a sell-by date by which it must be refined. That doesn't seem to serve the episode's
Who
narrative.
cares? I mean, that's really just like, well, actually, it's no. They're described exactly the same way. Highly combustible in its raw, pre-refined state. That's the exact same way you describe coaxium as seen in Solo. So,
Still, thanks for the super chat.
actually, the chemical breakdown of it is very. Come on, get out of here. This stuff's all made up.
Here's our Bud Suds back. He says, who else is looking forward to Parker blowing up the chat with the super chats tonight? I have taken steps to see to it that doesn't happen. So we'll see what
Poor
happens.
little guy is tied down in restraints.
I know. How about we take a call? We've got a first time caller join. Oh, make sure there's no Patreons. There is a Patreon, but I'm going to make this guy wait a little bit, but we'll definitely get him on. But first-time caller Scott joining us. Hello, Scott from North Carolina. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello. Hello, Scott.
Hey, chut, gentlemen.
Hey, chut, buddy.
Hey, Scott.
Chut.
First time, long time. Thanks for having the best Star Wars podcast out there.
Thanks, man. We try.
So I decided to finally call in and voice my opinion once this episode, the Marauder, got space jacked. And I realized this is going to just be another Adventure of the Week episode. Would have much rather the Bad Batch join Echo and Rex so we could follow the storylines that might impact the Star Wars timeline. So I just want to get your thoughts on a few things that I understand.
Okay.
Why do you think the Bad Batch didn't join Echo and Rex? He just kind of, Echo just said, I have to go do this. And they said, okay, great. And didn't seem to have that affinity, go out and help other clones. What is their loyalty to Sid? Why do we keep on having them do missions for her? And do you think, after all this, they'll get back with Echo and Rex hopefully by the end of this season? So thanks, guys.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for the kind words. And the question is why? Why didn't the whole Bad Batch go with Rex to help more clones? And I'll give a simple answer. For me, I think it had to do with Omega. I think that it's not clear what their goal is in terms of giving her what kind of life. I don't know. And that is something that's a little bit frustrating to me that they have not defined it. The characters haven't, verbalized what it is that they're looking for, but clearly, going on, there's a big difference between the missions that Sid is sending these guys on and what the stuff that Rex is going to be involved in. So It's a much bigger theater, you might say, in this conflict. That's my take, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, it could come down to just sheer selfishness. Echo made it clear that he wanted to be a part of the bigger picture, that he wanted to make a difference. He wanted to help out people in need. And then it became more specific, help out fellow clones. Now that it appears that the Empire is not going to see them off into any sort of favorable retirement. It seems like they're just being cast aside, and Echo wants to make a difference. He wants to make sure that doesn't happen to as many clones as possible. The Bad Batch, on the other hand, they have different priorities. I think the Bad Batch, there's an end game for these guys. They want to get to the point where they're financially set for life, so they could just disappear, drop off the grid, and raise Omega, send her to school or whatever they're going to do, and just get away from it all.
I'm picturing, the end of Goodfellas when they show Henry Hill come out, after he's in witness protection and the newspaper is kicked up on his driveway. Is that going to be Hunter? Is that what he's looking for? He wants that kind of a life.
My old life, I was dodging blaster bullets left and right. Today, I'm lucky if I even see a strobe light. It's all a bunch of... just a bunch of noodles with ketchup.
He's in that bathrobe and slippers.
In suburbia somewhere. Omega's in the backyard,
In a
probably going
treehouse.
through her bratty teenage years, He's like, geez, I left everything for this. But no, I think there's an end game for the Bad Batch, and I don't see any end game if they wanted to get involved with the clones and what I think will eventually become a full-out war, clone trooper versus stormtrooper, fighting for the rights of all clones. So that's probably why the Bad Batch are selfish. They want their big payday. They want to get themselves financially secure, win their independence, and
They were mercenaries.
go somewhere off the grid.
Right? They've always been mercenaries. They were never really, they were part of the cause, of the Clone Wars, but they were different. They were brought in for special missions, special ops. They were treated kind of like freaks, in the barracks, but as far as the generals were concerned, they were the way to get things done. So they may not have that same connection to the bigger cause that the regs like Echo had.
Right. A little detached, a little sheltered, and just like on their own island, kind of.
Yeah.
They're clones that march to the beat of a different drum, which is, super uncommon for these clones. They're all the same thing. They're about as homogenized as it gets.
Right.
And then you throw Wrecker and Hunter and all these wacky guys in the mix. It's a little too much, even for the system to handle, I think.
Here's Munfie Photography saying this was the Bad Batch in Disney's subliminal and obvious way of subliminally obvious way of addressing divorce. Yeah, this is what Mac was saying. So sorry we didn't see this earlier. When Tech and Omega sat down and discussed why the team was broken up. Yeah, this is I could definitely see that. I don't know if it was in the minds of the writers. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. I don't think that, the order came from on high where, Disney exec said, we need an episode about divorce. I don't think it went that way, but you could definitely interpret it. Definitely interpret it that way.
Yeah. And I get, as subliminal or obvious. I mean, I guess that just depends on whether or not you've had to deal with divorcing parents in your life. It's all a matter of perspective.
Right.
So somebody who might not see it right away, another person will watch it and go, oh my God, this is really speaking to me. And I really relate to this.
Here's our buddy Fart Party with a little clinking glass. So we'll do this here. I don't know if you got a beverage, Mac, but we'll say cheers to Fart Party. Good dude. Baby.
It's all vodka.
Red. Let's see. It looks like Brian here was in a conversation with Red. Says sometimes, especially if you do a super chat. I don't know if you meant to super chat. Oh, I got to search for super. That's why. Well, you know what, Brian? You got a free one here. So you snuck in. Here's Maddie. Maddie says, what if Sid hired the thief to steal the ship, either to sell it and pay off debts or to maroon the Bad Batch to get rid of them? Great thought, Maddie. I'm going to assume
I like that.
you thought you suggested that before we did. But no, great thought. I wondered that myself. Thank you very much. Here's another one from Fart Party. Watch the storms be a planetary defense like the Lost smoke monster. I never watched Lost, so I'm going to have to defer to Mac on this. I know you watched.
You didn't watch Lost?
I didn't watch Lost.
How did Lost get by you?
I'll tell you
Lost
exactly
was
how.
like the template. That's
My
like
kids
the
were
template for all TV.
I know.
Now.
My
Your
kids were all being
what?
born. My kids were all being born at that time when that show was on, and I was just like, it was baby duty.
You're wrong. I know when your kids were born. I know when Lost was on. You could have probably fit in 4 seasons while you were still just, without kids.
Really?
You got no excuse.
Wait, when did it start?
Oh, yeah. I think it started like around 2004. I want to say.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Is that
you're
right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. This is how Mac's mind works. How does he know the years my kids were born? Jesus.
I know when your kids are born because I had to host all those shows by myself.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, 2008
remember
was,
these
the,
things.
was the first one. 2008 was the first one. Here's Suds. Oh, I love this. This is great. Highly combustible in its pre-refined state, just like Jimmy Mac.
See, that's. I wish he wouldn't reveal personal information about me on the air like that. But it's true, all of it.
Here's Chris Hansford. He says, don't most clones still have chips? And couldn't the Empire just scramble their brains? Do most clones? Yeah, most clones still have chips. Yes. Couldn't the Empire just scramble their brains? I don't think it works that way. I think that the programming is inside the chip. I don't think they can alter the programming like wirelessly. You know what I mean? I don't think they can send out any changes because we saw Crosshair getting tune-ups, or at least what we thought were tune-ups. Right?
Yeah, but they're not sending out updates or anything.
No, there's no firmware updates going on in the which would be kind of funny, actually.
And at the time the clones were created, I mean, in universe, they were bred to be perfect soldiers, but in George Lucas's mind, they were the original stormtroopers.
Yeah. Right.
So that's how they were supposed to advance. So the idea of terminating them was never on anybody's radar, really. And so we started thinking about, well, let's see here. If the Clone Wars happened 22 years before A New Hope, that means all the stormtroopers are in their mid-40s. I don't know, because of the double.
Yeah,
aging,
I know. It's I really struggle with that. We're going to do a deep dive at some point because we've got folks emailing us and being on the chat saying, we got to talk about this clone aging thing. And I want to know.
I know. You know what? People point out that at some point, and it didn't happen on this show, so I'm not 100% sure, but at some point, Dave Filoni made a statement saying that the double aging slows down once they reach adulthood. But I've not ever heard Dave make this comment. Maybe he made it on this very show. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if that's really something we can consider to be a strict rule, because I had always heard these clones were aging at double time.
Yeah.
And there was no date where it sort of leveled out for them.
Not as far as we know.
Not as far as we know. Now, if somebody can, send me something, show at rebelforceradio.com, give me a source, give me a quote, give me anything. I'll research it.
They're going to send us a link to our own show. You see, guys, right. The way the clones age, Jimmy Mac.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Yanni says, one hasn't seen Lost, one Lion King. I think Lion King is the greater sin, but not by much. Uh-oh.
Yeah, but I was 25 years old when Lion King.
Right, of course.
The last thing I was going to be doing was not going to be buying a ticket to go see a G-rated animated feature. Now, come on. Come on.
Right.
All those Disney movies got by me. Little Mermaid, never saw it.
Yeah.
Name any Disney movie of that era, and I could tell you I didn't.
What was okay, I want to ask you this. What was the last Disney movie that you saw as a kid in the theater? Did you see
Pete's Dragon or something like that?
Maybe okay, all right.
Maybe the
Rescuers,
the Aristocats.
Aristocats. Okay, yeah,
that's a whole different movie.
Because
yeah,
they took a big break.
When I was a kid in the 70s, Disney movies were crapola, and they did a lot of live action stuff.
That's right. The Don Knotts,
they would
Apple Dumpling Gang and stuff like that.
Apple Dumpling Gang and Escape from Witch Mountain and stuff. And I mean, it was okay and everything, but it just, they were not hitting on all cylinders. Not in the 70s when I was a kid. Disney was kind of on a downward slope. It wasn't until the 90s when they really
Right.
started to come back
Right.
with quality.
Late 80s,
entertainment
late
that-
80s with the Little Mermaid. That was the Renaissance. I think prior to that, the last movie they did was the Black Cauldron. That kind of flopped, and then they took a hiatus and came back with Little Mermaid. All right, we've got one of our favorite features here every week. We got Blake's Take. Blake calling in from Missouri. He is our man. He's of the younger demographic, and he gets to break it down for us from a different perspective. Hey, Blake, you're on with us. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, chut.
Chut. What did you think about this episode? Jimmy Mack says there wasn't much meat on the bone. We had a lot of meat on the bone. We had quite a feast last week. 2 episodes had big ramifications for the universe. We saw Palpatine, all of that. This week, not as much. What's Blake's take?
All right. So there's 3 things I want to say.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say like the categories, and then I'll go through each one.
All right.
So the first one is my theory. 100%. I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen.
Okay.
My second one is something I want to happen next episode.
Okay.
And the third one is what my dad thinks about this episode.
Okay, I love this. So number 1 is
Okay.
your theory. Number 2 is your desire. Number 3 is Dad's take. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
This is
Hit
going
us
to be
with
something
your
bad about
theory.
Trandoshans.
All right. So my theory is next episode. You know how there was the whole sandstorm, and how they went into the mines because of the sandstorms.
Yeah, right.
It wouldn't get.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like whenever the driver, whoever it was, who stole the Marauder, I feel like they didn't leave off world yet to go away. They were like going back to their hut or wherever they're at to go grab anything that they left, like valuables or something.
Well, okay. All right. I'm with you on that. But why do you think that? Why do you think that? Because is it because of the storm? You think that?
Well, I feel like before the storm even came, they the person who stole the ship went back to their base to go get like their weapons, their guns, just all that. And then they fly off, but then the sandstorm comes in. Then it like covers their whole vision. They can't see nothing, and they crash down. And they could and then the Marauder could still be on the planet, but just broken.
I got to tell you, Blake.
So, like,
Hold on, I just got to say that if in the next episode the Bad Batch are just kind of like walking through the desert and they see their ship just laying there abandoned, then we're really going to know there's some lazy writing going on. We can't.
Maybe they see it like in a distance, like smoke or something from the ship. Or whenever the ship was crashing down, maybe all the wings and pieces just flew everywhere.
Okay. All right. You know what? I mean, I tell you, it is definitely a possibility that they might just come across it, and that thief didn't quite get off world with the Marauder. So Blake's take, the theory is the Havoc Marauder is still on the planet. What is your desire? What is the thing you want to happen?
I want Echo and Rex to come to the planet because they somehow will have they will find Sid and they'll like ask where the Bad Batch is, and she might say where they're at, she might not. So once she tells them the place, maybe, which probably, they will go to the planet, but they won't just be in a ship. They will have the ATTE from Rebels that they have in Rebels. So they'll have that. That's what they'll be carrying around with them.
I tell you what I feel like. I feel like I'm watching Blake playing with the action figures in the vehicles, like he's plotting this out. I love this. I can see you, on the living room floor with the action figures and all that. Okay, all right, that's what you want to happen. I like the idea that Echo and Rex get involved. I think it's going to be a couple more episodes before they do. That's my thought, that they won't. He just left. They don't want to come in right away. I think they want to build up a little bit of time. What is Dad's take? What does Blake's dad say?
All right. So after the episode and all that, he said, he's like how he always says, never trust Trandoshans.
That's right.
And Sid,
we know how your dad feels. We know about
Sid's
his kind.
Trandoshan. She's a Trandoshan,
right?
And his prediction is that this will not happen at all. Sid is not coming back for them. Sid is not going to save them. Just leave them there.
Wait, does this have to do with what happened on Kashyyyk with those Trandoshans?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
She's just pure evil. She's been plotting this all along.
Really?
She's been counting down the days.
Wow.
Just waiting until she sends them on this one mission. And she just leaves them there. She hires the person to steal the ship. But they were probably already there. They got the transmission to steal the ship. So they were going to go back for their weapons and all that.
Dirty
Wow.
She has been plotting this ever since the first mission.
Yeah, she has been.
And this is not Blake's take. This is Blake's dad's take.
Maybe that's why. I can't talk. Maybe that's why Echo left.
Oh.
Was because he was tired of taking orders from Sid what to go do and all that.
Who wants to take orders from a dirty Trandoshan? We know they're kind. Hey, Blake, thanks, buddy. We love it. We love the theory. We love the desire. We love Dad's take, and we love you. Thanks for calling and giving us the lowdown. We appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you next time, okay? All right. Let's see. We got a couple more super chats here before we wrap things up tonight. We've got Red Leader coming in with on program.
On program.
We've got more from Suds. Omega being upset about Echo leaving the team really made me think about kids, how kids would get upset if their friends moved out of the neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. That always sucks.
All those thoughts. And then here's Darcy. Darcy says, first time catching After Show on time. Love it. And love RFR. Gotta go. But it's okay. Like Echo, I'll be back. Well, Darcy, thanks.
Thanks, Darcy.
Glad that you were able to
Nice.
to catch it. And if you haven't caught a live Bad Batch After Show, please do make a point if you can. We know it's not easy for everybody, but oh, wait a minute. Hold on. We got one more. Someone's trying to get it in under the wire. Last super chat. This is coming from Ice Fisher Tenacity. Someone in Star Wars should make a compound using ipsium, rhydonium, and coaxium. Wonder what it could do. Maybe that's the recipe for what, you throw in some kyber crystals and maybe you got a Death Star super weapon. Who knows?
Maybe, or it's just like witch hazel and you rub it on your hemorrhoids.
Jesus Christ. Holy cow. Where did that come from? I think it's coming from experience. That's where I think it's coming. It's coming from. Hey, guys, thanks so much for a great after show. Like I said, these, even when the episodes might leave you a little wanting, might leave you a little hungry, we got the RFR after show, which hopefully rounds out the meal. And a guy that really helps do that for us each and every week is Tyler Page. Tyler's our call screener and the official program observer here at Rebel Force Radio. And Tyler, we really appreciate you being here every week and helping us pick the best of the best, the cream of the crop of the callers. But, you know, we only have so much time. We might have left a few threads unpulled. Anything that was on your mind after watching this episode where you think that, you know, something we might have missed?
Yeah, I think like you guys, I also thought that this episode wasn't filler. There's a lot of love and relationship stuff going on between Omega and Tech. I think one thing I want to make sure I say, you know, it's okay to be mad at Echo. I think it's like for them to be okay to be mad at Echo, because this is like a guy who just like, he just really showed up and then he's gone already. I mean, I don't know what's happened off scene, but I feel like it's okay to be mad at that guy. I mean, he just dipped out of nowhere.
Is he a deserter? You think he's a deserter?
I would be, if I was Wrecker or Hunter, I'd be like, this guy was a critical part of the team and he's gone. What the heck? Yeah, so other than that though, you know, you see Omega in a fetal position in this episode. I got to go back and look at what other episodes have that, because I know we've seen her in the fetal position before.
It is kind of it's an Omega thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, all those clones in the test tubes, they were all in a fetal position too. So I mean, it's just
it's natural.
That's what the fetuses do.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very.
Thanks for having me. I just think she's going. I think she's going through grief. I think it's a cycle of grief, by the way. And she's in anger,
loss.
Yeah.
We saw anger.
I think that's something important to watch out for. Or at least I'll be keeping in mind in the future. So
yeah. Well, thanks, buddy. Always appreciate you being here, and you're definitely a listener favorite. In fact, I think we just we got a new segment. According to Chris, he says it's Tyler's take. Tyler's take on the.
I'm no Blake.
You're no Blake. None of us are. None of us are.
Tyler time. Just Tyler time. You know.
Anyway,
Blake has the takes. Tyler has the time.
Tyler time, Blake's take. I love it. All right, well, Tyler, we love you. Thanks so much for hanging with us tonight and helping us out. Jimmy Mac, as you said earlier, less meat on the bone than in previous weeks, but any final thoughts that you would care to share?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's just the whole thing. It's almost a feeling of whiplash getting pulled out of the really dense and big picture story stuff that drives the mythology to then just jump back to mission of the week. But there were essential things happening in this mission of the week, character moments, especially dealing with the fallout of Echo's departure. It's good, you know. A lot of times shows things like that'll happen and characters won't even react to it the next week. You know, it's like it never even happened. But this is good that they had time to follow up on that, because as I said, it happened at the end of the last episode and it was abrupt. So they had to deal with it, and I'm glad they did. So that makes that's the most essential part of this episode. I did like the visuals every week on Bad Batch is outstanding. That Utah environment, you know, the Bad Batch goes to Utah, but it worked for this episode. Again, sick of Sid, done with Sid. The show needs to evolve and grow a little bit, and the way it has to do that is by getting away from Sid. You can't have a momentous event like last week where the Bad Batch gets shaken to its core and one of the main characters departs. You can't have all that stuff happen and get whiplash being thrown back into another mission for Sid. This mission of the week stuff is tired. It's run its course, and we need to move on. We need to find something else for these guys to do. Standalone episodes of the Clone Wars that didn't really advance the mythology were much more acceptable to us because we were intimately aware of who those characters were and their impact on the big picture to begin with. The Bad Batch does not share any of those qualities with any of the characters from the Clone Wars. Anytime Anakin Skywalker said anything in the Clone Wars, we felt like that had an impact on the Star Wars saga as we knew it. And we could go back and look at Anakin Skywalker in the films, in the prequels, and say, wow, I have a different perspective about that character because of the Zillo Beast episode or something. I mean, you can do that. While on the outside, it looks like the Zillo Beast was kind of a standalone adventure, sort of a throwaway thing. There were no repercussions following that arc, but it had main characters in it. And that's what made it important to us. The Bad Batch, they don't share that place on the marquee with the main characters of Star Wars. So to have them going on this mission of the week thing, it's got tired, it's gotten old, and it appears to be lazy at this point, because we've seen what this series can do, and it can achieve greatness. It can stand side by side with gritty, realistic, hardcore storytelling like we saw in Andor, if we look at episodes from last week. But this mission of the week stuff has just gotten a little tired, gotten a little old. I'm not going to beat that drum each and every week, but I'm feeling it this week for some reason. Like I said, I'm feeling a little sense of whiplash. But I expect there to be some sort of payoff next week. The storms, whatever the threat is going to be. I almost hope that the Empire shows up on this planet for some reason. And really, the stakes get raised a little bit more. Because we need to have more interaction with the Bad Batch and the Empire. We need a villain in this show. And we really don't have it right now. And in this episode, we also didn't have Puffa Pig. Because Puffa Pig, not in this episode.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Please check us out over on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/RebelForceRadio for weekly full show video, exclusive podcast that you can't get anywhere else. And it's just a great community of Star Wars fans. You heard from a couple of them tonight, and you see them and hear from them in the chat. So if you want more of that, you can get it at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Please watch us on YouTube like you're doing now. We love to have the subscriptions. Costs you nothing. Like, comment. You know the drill on the YouTube videos. It's a great place to really experience and do a deep dive on what we've been up to the last 15 years doing Star Wars podcasting. We're also on all of the socials. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, check us out there. The official website, rebelforceradio.com. And the best thing you can do for us, if you want to support us, really is to just keep listening. Do what you're doing now. Keep watching, participating in the live streams. Tell your friends. Let people know. If you got a Star Wars fan in your life, and they're not listening to us at Rebel Force Radio, please let them know that we're here, and we'd love to have them in the audience as well. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast feed. Leave us a review if that's possible. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
And we'll be back later this week with more Rebel Force Radio, the weekly show. We'll be coming at you at the end of the week. And we'll be back next week for more Bad Batch. We'll see what happens if they can get off this godforsaken planet. But until then, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.